Welcome to episode 19 of Let's Talk Hockey, sponsored by Bunkers Hill Hockey, powered by Pixel Factory Media and Hamilton Audio Management. I'm your host, Max, and with me in the virtual change room at some point soon will be Adam Biddy Bidoff.
Hello, sorry to jump into the show like this. Sorry I couldn't make it today. Max is right, this one was a nightmare to edit, and I do want to point out right at the start, I am going to get you back. Please enjoy the rest of the show.
But before I get into introing our guests, I just want to say a huge thanks to all the listeners sticking with us since our last recording has been a while ago, but we're getting back into the virtual change room, some new arrivals and some new guests coming up, just like the one we've got on today. So let's get into introing him and talking hockey. Our guest today goes by a couple of names: Coach, Colonel, Ginge, spring to mind immediately. Playing all of his hockey out of the fantastic hockey hotbed in Peterborough, making it to the lofty heights of NIHL2, playing for the Islanders. But his knowledge of the game didn't go unnoticed, as 1 year after behind the bench of his beloved Islanders, he was headhunted and took over the helm of the Chelmsford Chieftains in the NIHL1, collecting a playoff championship the first season he was there. I know him more for his work during the summer as the co in Clark & Co. Hockey camps. It's my pleasure to welcome onto the show Joe, the Colonel Willson. How's it going, buddy?
Yeah, good, thank you, buddy. That's a good intro. I like that.
Yeah, not bad.
Pump my tyres a lot there, that has.
Yeah, feeling a bit good about yourself. That's how we want to start.
Yeah, little red face there. Head's got a bit bigger.
You're gonna go ask for a raise at the end of the season. So we won't waste any time with it. We'll jump straight into period one. Let's drop the puck on the get to know you questions. So Joe, you've had a bit of time with these first six, and then we'll get into the lightning round. You've had a bit of time to prepare with the first ones. So what was your intro to hockey?
Really weird, because my family is all football. Like my brother and my dad are lifelong Man United fans for their sins. And my dad just happened to work with 3 or 4 players who played for Peterborough. He used to come in with like half-price tickets, family tickets for like £15. So we just went, and it was like the only sport really when I was a kid. I was like, wow, this is actually really good. Like, what's there not to like? They're flying around, and now they're fighting. Like, this is brilliant. Like, and just fell in love with it. Literally, I think I was 8 years old, skated for a year, and then joined the under-10s in Peterborough, and that was me on the hook on the bandwagon.
Did you drag any of your family along with that? Did you kind of convert them away from football slightly?
Not really. No, my dad just liked all sports really, so he would come and watch. Again, as we talked about, like he worked with, Darren Cotton, John Fine and Duncan Cook, who were all playing in Peterborough at the time. So it gave him something to sort of talk about at work. My brother skated and thought about it, but he's 7 years older than me, so it was like a bit too old for him. But no, that was it. It was just me that went in and did it, and they followed me around and drove me everywhere and took me to all these places, which I'm very thankful for.
Awesome. So on to question 2, a question that is in there just for me, pretty much. I'm hoping that other people out there listening enjoy this too, but every hockey player has a number. Did yours mean anything to you?
When I was a kid, we used to get given numbers, right? We didn't get to choose. I got given the number 6. And I always wanted number 23 because my favourite player at the time wore 23. So that's what I always wanted. But every other year, the manager's son had 23. That was his number. So I ended up with number 6. Looking back now, it's stupid, but we always had a really good year when I wore 6. And when I got to seniors, and I got really superstitious. I was like, might have to stick with 6. But I hated being called like one of the first to be called. I don't like it. So I thought 66 would be perfect. First team I went to was like, oh, 66 is taken. I was like, oh, great. Can I have 60? Just was like, yeah, you can. All of a sudden realised that no one actually probably wants the number 60. Like, it's not really like, no, it's not like, you're trying to be Gretzky or David and taking their number. Like no one really good plays 60. Like, no one's going to take this number now, and that would be me sorted wherever I go.
The only other person that I can think to wear 60 was a goalie for the Panthers a handful of years ago, Patrick Munson. That's the only one that jumps to my mind. Yeah. I'm surprised that like at certain levels you weren't given like a goalie cut jersey kind of sewn up or something. I was like, yeah, we've got it, but it's not exactly a player size.
So I might change my number at that point.
Just taped it up around the arms. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's only NIHL too. We're good. So talking about how far back we've gone in the history books with your grassroots and how you started. Surely there's some stand-up moments. I've given you 3 categories to go into. I know you said before we started that you've got a couple for the coaching one. Let's start with your playing and watching hockey moments.
Playing would be my last year when we won the treble in Peterborough. That was really good. We were a really tight group. We've been the same sort of team for 3 or 4 seasons, and we'd all grown up together. We were all basically from Peterborough. We'd all played juniors together. So it never felt really the old cliches. We felt like a team, it felt like a family. Like we'd all hang out together. Again, it's NIHL too, so you don't play every day. You play every weekend. We would see each other in some form every week. Whether it be like, you know what, we're just going to go and have a football tournament today at this field, or we're going to go and play pool at this bar today, just chill out. And that was us. And we did 3 seasons together, and both times we came second in the league. We got to the cup final, we got to the playoff final, and we won the semis, and we've been knocked out. That year when we won the league, and we then won the cup, we were like, oh my god, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And then they announced it was going to be the last year of Islanders. They rebranded. It's going to be called Phantoms 2. This was like the 20th anniversary. It was all like, holy hell, it's all aligned now for us to do this. And yeah, we did it. That's something that I'll always hold very, very dear to me. Watching Panthers winning the treble obviously definitely springs to mind. I think for me, probably Panthers winning the Grand Slam. I remember being sat in Nottingham. I think Belfast overtime, Jordan Fox scored, and that was special for me because I've been involved. Obviously, we're going to talk about that a bit later. I've been involved a little bit with that group at that time, so to see them succeed in that way. A lot of friends that were playing on the team at the time, and that was nice to sort of see. And then coaching, this is the one I actually struggled with because there's a lot like with coaching. Obviously, playoffs with champions is great. Anytime you win a trophy, the player or coach, it's amazing. It's something that I think no matter how many I win, I hope there's a lot, I'll always remember each one of them. But when I was in champions my 3rd year, we beat Streatham at home 2-0, and they hadn't lost for like a year. They were dominant. They were a powerhouse. I think our goal had a 56 save shutout.
Jeez.
And it was just really, really good. Like no one had beaten them, and then we went and we beat them. And then it was similar this year. Leeds, pretty powerhouse in the NIHL, and then we came to Milton Keynes. We'd lost in Leeds 2 weeks before, and we got halfway through the second frame, was 6-2 down, I think it was, and we brought it back to 6-6 and then won in overtime.
Jeez.
That was the first loss they'd had that year, and to be 6-2 down, we were like on the bench, maybe 6-2 down. This could be cricket score right now. We called time out, the old yell and swear, and a few blue words, and then 3 went in and 4 went in. It's like, oh, we might brought this back. And in the back of my head was always like, at some point, I think they're going to just switch on again, and they didn't. They just didn't, like But yeah, then just again coaching. There's lots of kids now that play, the game that I'm very proud to say that I had an influence in. Like probably the newest one springs to mind, like Archie Salisbury, who played for Panthers a few weeks ago and playing down in Peterborough.
Yes,
I was coaching on Learn to Play in Peterborough, starting coaching when Archie Salisbury was falling over his own shoes. And he came on the Clark hockey camp. He's just a sweet kid, and I've known him since he was 5 years old. So it makes me feel very old that now he's playing senior men's, especially against my team. But can't help but want him to do well. We played them in pre-season. I tell him I played for Leeds, like a nice kid. That's just a bit, and that's me. I think any coach who has that would be a highlight for them, is just seeing someone they've had an influence with flourish.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Before the job that I'm doing now and the bar work that I used to do, when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a PE teacher. I got a chance to be something similar. I was a camp counselor and I was an activity instructor. And seeing any kid go from like not being able to do something or being scared to do something and then flourishing at it, or just having the confidence to give it a go again. It's a feeling that you can't really describe. It's almost like a proud parent, but it's slightly different. It's just knowing that you've done your job, and you've had an effect. You've had a positive effect on somebody. It's
completely, yeah. You summed it up there perfectly.
Yeah. So before we get a little bit too soppy, we'll move on to question 4. What teams? And I know that people who play kind of keep in touch with players and friends that you've made through the industry and through the sport. So I know that a lot of players keep up with just in the individual. So what hockey do you keep up with? I know you said before we started, you keep up with a lot of hockey due to your job.
Yeah, I struggled with this one because, you know, if we're not reviewing a game that's played, we're pre-scouting the next one. So it feels like I do just watch hockey. I mean, I watch all the NHL. I'm just a hockey nerd. I watch all the NHL highlights. They're on in the background during the day. Sometimes I don't properly process. I'm doing something else whilst I'm watching them. But players-wise, any player I played with, always try and keep up with them. You know, if a friend, like, you know, when he's still abroad, like when Ollie Batteries went abroad and Ewan King, I'd always try and keep up to date with their team, what they were doing. And then just any team really, like, you know, especially our league, the league that I'm in, just, you know, it's one of them ones where you want to see what other teams are doing, so you can see who's beating who, what's going on with the league. And like recruitment side, it's coming up to that sort of summertime now where you're going to recruit the league below and the league above, who's not doing so well, who's doing really well in the league below. You know, this person might be a diamond in the rough here, we should try and pluck him. Or, oh, this person in the elite league, he's getting on, he might want to drop down, he's not getting the highest time, something like that. So it's just that sort of thing. That's just a big hockey nerd. Just sit and watch hockey all day, would be happy.
Just trying to absorb it all.
Yeah, it's the sponge.
So on to question 5, something that I've added in specifically for you because we haven't had a dedicated coach on the show as of yet. You're the first, so you're setting a high standard. Coaches that influence your style.
Yeah, again, struggle with this one because every coach is different, you know, and everyone has their own style. There's never going to be another, you know, like there's never going to be another one of hopefully of me, and I'm going to be the first Joe Willson. I'm never going to be the second Pete Russell. But yeah, I think I take bits from coaches that I see and that I like and try and adapt my own little way on it. Same with drills. If there's ever like a drill that I did as a player, so I really enjoyed that, then I'll always sort of throw it in at a practice. Or I see a drill online and I'm like, I like it, but I think I'd do it this way, a bit differently, adapt it. But I think for influence and probably like more mentors, there's 3 main ones for me, which would be David Clark, Corey Nelson, and Ewan King. And they are 3 people that have always had my back from a very young age and always helped me and mentored me. And really the reason where I am today is down to those 3 individuals, and they're people that I consider friends and I still go to now if there's any problems. You know, if I'm struggling with something, if I'm nervous, if something I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing, then I'll throw one of them a text. And it's great now, like I'm working with Tim Wallace, he's coming in that bracket too, but I'm going to stick to those 3 because they've, you know, known me for over 10 years now. So they've had a real impact on me and as a person.
Yeah, and knowing those 3 people as well. Probably Ewan King not as much, but I got a chance to chat with him at the last Clark and Curry Nottingham, and yeah, I don't think you could have picked any better people, if I'm honest with you, as people and as people within ice hockey. So one that I know that you struggled with. It's one that a lot of people find hard. Is number 6 and your dream line.
So I didn't put myself down for the import for the NHL because I'm not an importer. I don't play in NHL. Sorry, man.
Sure.
But so where do you want me to start? Where do we go with here?
Let's get the big boys out of the way. Let's start with the NHL, and we'll work our way down to the Brits.
Okay, perfect. So my dream line would be Fleury in goal, 100%. Then I think on D, I'd probably have Scott Niedermayer and Brent Burns.
Ooh.
And then in the middle, Sergei Fedorov, because he was my favourite player growing up. When I first got NHL 06, like my first ever one, he was like the Ducks captain, and he was my guy. And then Tom Wilson and Ovechkin, because kind of Ivy without Wilson.
Fair dues. Is Tom Wilson there to supply, or is he there as a bit of grit as well?
A bit of both, you know. He can supply, but when we need him to, he'll throw down.
Yeah, he's. I know he's a sandpaper. Well, he is to me anyway. He's a bit of a sandpaper guy. Like, do I like him? Do I not like him? Do I, can I let him off for his hockey skill, for his extracurricular stuff? Maybe we'll see. Onto your imports.
My imports. So in goal, I had Yannis Ozins, who played for Peterborough a few years ago. Very, very good goalie. Played the puck very well. Then D, I went for Guy Lepine.
Yeah.
And Corey Nielsen. Up front, I had Stanislav Lesek in the middle, who plays in Invicta now, but I think you might know him from Sheffield, Scimitars, and Sutton Sting.
I see the name rings a bell.
Yeah, and he covers both. He actually got drafted in 05 Tampa, and now plays in the NHL 1. Nice. He was my import my last year in Chelmsford. Really good guy. I get on really well with him. Obviously, I had to throw Tim Wallace in there because he'd probably kill me if I didn't. And then a bit of a wild card, but the import that Belfast have just signed, Grant Cooper. He played in Leeds, and I really liked his style. He can score. He's got some good hands. He's pretty hard hitting too. Like, I quite like. He's got a bit of grit in him, and I like that.
Okay. So that just leaves the best of British.
The Brits. I just filled this with my buddies, to be honest with you. Apart from one, really. But we'll get. So in goal, I put Ewan in goal.
Yeah.
Put Kinger in goal. Then on D, I had Stevie Lee, and originally it was going to be Tom Norton, actually. Oh. And then as I was writing them down, just the name popped in my head. I was like, actually, it was Jonathan Weaver, an in-prime Jonathan Weaver in D, and then put myself in the middle of David Clark, and I went to go Lukey Fed. Keep it, a Peterborough line.
Yeah.
But then I realised we're all left-handed, so it might not work too well. So the coach in me came out, and I put Ollie Betteridge there. So I got the easy job. I just give the puck to one of them two, and they can go and do some work. Yeah,
exactly. You just fly down the middle and just dish it off to either side.
I wouldn't be flying. I think I'll just stay in the centre dot and just give the puck to one of them, and I'll just wait there till the face-off comes back.
Fair enough. Sounds a lot like my game. I've been playing centre quite a lot. I used to be a winger. Now I'm playing centre. Don't know why. Some formidable lineups there, and I love that you couldn't switch off your coach, the coach in you, and you had to balance them out a little bit. Love that. Absolutely love that. I'm going to give you a chance to get some honourable mentions. I know you said a couple guys didn't make it here and there, but I'll give you a couple of honourable mentions here and there.
I think I covered them in, probably like Nortsey, Lewis Hook. Luke and Lewis are around my age. I played juniors with them, so I know how good they are. Killer in goal for the imports.
Yeah,
and the same, same again. And NHL, just any of them, they're just all the fact, McDavid, Crosby. Pick out them two and Ivy.
Awesome. So we're going to fly into the lightning round. You've had time to prep for those ones. You've not had time to prep for this. This is just me firing out suggestions to you, and you just coming back with your favorite or your best, whatever pops into your head. And then we'll get on to a quick break and then on to period 2. So, the lightning round. Your favorite or best hockey brand?
Bauer.
Away rink to play in?
Ooh. Sheffield?
Ice Sheffield or arena?
Ice Sheffield. Never done the arena. So I'll stick with what I've done. Ice Sheffield.
Okay. A team to play against?
I don't know. I like playing against them all. In our league, probably Leeds. We'll go Leeds.
Cool. Jersey. All time?
Retro Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
Anytime they do the retro Ducks.
Post-game drink of choice?
Sunday night. When we play 2 games or 3, we're having any lager, any beer, anything that's cold.
Anything cold and fizzy. Love it.
Yeah.
White tape or black tape?
White.
Okay. Tucked or flopped tongues?
Tucked.
OT or a shootout?
OT.
Poke check or body check?
Big fan of both. Body check.
Cool. A music genre?
Oh.
What are you listening to?
R&B.
Fair enough. A series that you couldn't stop watching?
Star Wars.
All-Stars, your favorite All-Stars skills competitions, that's coming up.
Ooh. I like the source of passing one. Oh,
okay. A drill to run. Your favorite drill to run?
It was a drill that I never did it before, but the Chelmsford guys had done it. They taught it to me. It's called Road Wars, which is a continuous 2-on-1. You make it like super competitive.
Okay.
So you start as 2-on-1, but the minute you cross the blue line, the next line, a forward can jump in to make it a 2-on-2, and the other forward's hanging high.
Right.
You just split into 2 teams. You play best of 3 or best of 5. It's one of them drills where it can go on for like half an hour because it depends how good you are on defender 2-on-1, how hot your goalies are, but it could be over in like 5 shots.
Yeah.
So I've had times where it's gone and you're like, oh, that was quick. Like maybe like 5 minutes, and then like times I'm like, I'm gonna have to call this now because guys are blowing. I'm 10 minutes into my practice and I'm closing up. I might have to get rid of a drill here.
Awesome. That's it. That's all I've got. You survived the lightning round. I know.
Some of them ones really threw me. I was not expecting the music one or the drink. That really threw me.
Yeah. You thought they were all hockey. I threw a couple of wild cards in there. Right then. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages. The Let's Talk Hockey is sponsored by Bunkers Hill Hockley, the best place before and after any event at the arena. Our listeners can get offers on a range of drinks, ask the bar staff for details, and tell them that Let's Talk Hockey sent you. That's Bunkers Hill Hockley, a minute's walk from the rink. And now, back to the episode. We're back for period 2. Joe Wilson's still with me. The Colonel is still here. But unfortunately, due to technical issues, my co-host Biddy is unable to join us. He still promised me that he will edit this, so good luck, bud. We ran over in that first period. We usually try and keep it to 20 minutes, but the stories and the fun was just flowing, so let's just keep it going. So, like I said, still here with Joe, and we're going to talk more about your journey into and through coaching. So, when did coaching become something that you seriously looked at?
Oh, I'm not sure, really. Like, I always enjoyed playing. I really enjoyed playing. But I'll be honest, as a player, I was really, don't know if I was unfortunate or lucky, because Luke Farrar is a year older than me, and Lewis Hook is a year younger than me. So I was kind of stuck. Every other year I'd play with Luke and a few other players. That it wasn't just Luke, but Luke's the only one that sort of made it to the elite league. A lot of them play in the NHL, and then Lewis the year below. So we always had a really good team. We always made national finals. We were always sort of top end. So didn't get a lot of ice time. but still enjoyed it. And then sort of discovered that my head was quicker than my legs almost. So I would look at a puck in the corner, like, okay, when I get that puck, I want to go around the net and I want to shoot it top goal. But wasn't quick enough to get there and didn't have a good enough shot to sort of do it. So that's where I was like, okay, maybe coaching the thing. And I broke my ankle one summer. So as part of like the rehab, I just went on a push pucks like the under-16 team and the stuff. I was like, actually quite enjoy this. And then it was always an option, just like, you know what, I'll just help the junior club. I'll just work with the under 10s and 12s and stuff like that. And as part of that, my dad suggested, like, at the time David ran his hockey school. He just, I think, in his third year, and he only did the one camp in Peterborough then. And I'd reached the age limit, so I couldn't go on it. So my dad was like, why don't you see if you can go and help, like, just move some pucks around, like, you know, keeps you involved. Like, okay, so I sort of spoke to him, and he was, as anyone that's had a conversation with David knows, he's very accommodating, stuff like that. If you want to get better, he'll help you. So he's like, yeah, sure, come down. And he introduced me to Corey, and said, look, you know, you want to be a good coach, you think you want to do this. And I was like, I don't really know. Like, well, work with Corey, like, you know, I'll pair you with him this week. He can see you and stuff like that. And you know, then like got to like the end of the week, and he's like, oh, you asked Corey for his number, and I'm like, no, like, why would I do that? He's like, well, probably a good idea to do so. Then you've got like someone you can bounce ideas off. And so before I know it, I've got this person, head coach, has not the telephone number. And again, a few weeks later, I saw David. He's like, have you spoke to Corey? I was like, no. He's like, well, why don't you speak to see if you can come up? Like, you know, I can take you up. And he was living in Peterborough at the time. Like, I can take you up. I'm like, okay. So didn't really do it that year a lot because once I find the time, but it was, you know, it was really hard to do. Then the following year, I was like, okay, I really want to do this now. I've had a year coach. I think I'm pretty good at it. Like, I want to do this. I want to see if I want to learn. So I went up for 2 weeks their pre-season training camp, which was really good fun. Ollie Betteridge was still in the cage, like he was like a prospect player. Same as sort of Sam Gospel and stuff like that. So really, really like loads of fun. And then I was at college, but I didn't have but college wasn't on Thursday, so every Thursday I would go to Austin. So I'd go to Davidson. He lived like about 20 minutes away from my house. I had a moped, so I'd like get there at like 6:30 on my moped, like snow, rain, ice. Like I'd get there, jump in the car with him, and we'd go up at practice. We'd come back, and back I went on my moped. Didn't even realize what was happening. But like now I look, like I was like an apprenticeship program, like, and that was the year Hampton won the Grand Slam, which is what I was saying earlier on. Like that's what was really, really special like about it. Always sort of was like just learn the off-ice side of it more. Like I was comfortable running the drill, but I'd never seen like any of the video or the clipping or anything like that. Like just learn from that, and then was like, okay, I want to expand my mind, like goalies. Like spoke to Ewan, and anything goalie wise, I go to Ewan. He's a goalie guru. Like he is. If you want to know anything about goalies in this country, that's the man you need to go and see. You know, that's just sort of what happened. And then was playing, and every year that I played, or every year that I made the team, coaching never got my full attention. And then the leagues changed. So Guildford stepped up into the Elite League, and they sort of like the EPL fell, and then after that. So a couple of tough teams dropped into our NIHL too, and one of them actually being Chelmsford. And my coach told me, look, you're not going to get a lot of ice time, so you've got a couple of choices. One, you can sign like an injury cover player, or two, like if you want to come on board as part of the coaching staff, or all three, you can just go elsewhere. I'm like, okay, I don't want to go elsewhere. I don't particularly know if I want to be an injury cover player. So again, had my chat with David, my chat with Corey, and they were like, look, it's probably time you don't give up the dream of playing, but you need to now probably you're at a fork in the road where you decide, do you want to play or do you want to coach? I was like, I really want to coach, really think I can do it. Spent a year in Peterborough, and then just happened to be the next like summer, like scrolling through Facebook, and sort of Chelmsford was like looking for a head coach. So I was like, well, same league, like I know the league, it's a bit of travel, but you know what, give it a go. Went there and we won the playoffs, did really well, obviously. And then the leagues changed again, they went up, stayed. Second year ended short because of COVID, and third year ended short because of results and results weren't going our way. So management decided that a new coach or relieve your coach would spark up the players. So that happened, and again, I was very down when that happened. Again, phone calls to you and go, and phone calls to David go, and I never sort of bother Corey with stuff like that because he's super busy in his world that he's involved in, and then all of a sudden I'm getting a text from MK like, oh no, we've signed Tim Wallace. Would you be interested in coming on board as the assistant coach? Like, wow, this is actually pretty big now. Like, it's like a league above. Great person. Like, I didn't even know he was in the NHL, honestly. Like, Morgan Clark told me this. Like, I didn't know he was a tough. I found out he was in the NHL when I read the press release that he'd signed as a player coach.
Right.
I was like, oh, he's in the NHL. That's pretty good. And then I was out with Morgan Clark. He's like, oh, he's really tough. And I'm like, look at it. He's like, he fought Mario Lemieux. I'm like, no way. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm searching through YouTube. I'm like, oh wow, this person, that's pretty tough. Like, didn't even realize. So again, the offer comes through. The conversations go with Corey and David and you, and then decided it was the right step. So that's sort of where I'm at now, and it sort of fires back to those three people. And I look back now, I'm like, didn't even realize what was happening. And even now, like Corey's great, and I know a lot of people. Everyone knows David Clark in the hockey world. Everyone knows, it's just spoken to. Everyone knows what a great, genuine guy he is.
Mm-hmm.
But what they maybe don't see from Corey is if you want something, and I've always realized to myself, like, if you really want something, he will help you, and he will always challenge you. Even though we work on David's hockey camps together, and if we're ever partnered together, he'll ask me questions, and he'll get me to run a drill. Even if he's running, he'll get me to run that. I want to see how you handle it. I want to see how you would explain it, how I would have explained it. And he won't just say it and say what you said was fine, but what you should say in this order. Like, you got this confused or that confused, and he just wants people to get better. He admits himself, if he wasn't a coach, he'd be a teacher, and that's what he enjoys doing. And like I said, Ewan's been around the game in Britain a long time, around the leagues that I've been involved with a long time. He's a very calm influence. There isn't much he can't do now in the hockey world, not just goalies, but the technical side of it. And he is really good. And I'm very thankful that these three people have seen something in me and invested a lot of time and resource in me. And we were speaking earlier on about that proud parent feeling, and I strive every time that I'm out there doing now what is my job to give these three people that same feeling of me. And that's sort of me today. I don't really think I missed anything too much on there.
No, I think you've gone through that perfectly. I think you've also scratched off about 3 or 4 of the questions that I've got written down. So as much as we may have run over in the first period, I think we might have
what did you have? You can ask them. It's not a problem.
No. So the one that I wrote down was it kind of popped into my head. So I don't think you've kind of covered it. I'm going to go. I like to, like I said earlier, I like to coach. I like to teach. I used to like to teach as well, and that never leaves. That's still in me. So as a hockey nerd myself, as well as a coaching nerd, what's the biggest advancement in coaching that you're seeing, or that you have seen through not just through the years that you've been behind the bench, but also kind of the leagues that you've been behind the bench?
I think leagues is probably player mentality. So it was always tough for me in Peterborough because I'd gone from being one of the boys to this now figure of authority, and they knew my background. They knew sort of, I was the fourth line grinder, and now all of a sudden I'm from this next, I'm yelling at them. They're a bit like, and it was, you'd lose, they'd be upset, but like, well, where we're going for a drink, it's like, just lost, like, come on. And then, in NIHL 1, you still have that a little bit. It's it's semi-professional, but ultimately it's not a job. So it's like, oh well, yeah, we're in Solent today. I can't come because if I'm leaving at 11 and I work Saturday morning.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to ask you to take a day's holiday. As a coach, I'd like you to, but I'm not going to outright ask you to. And then me, and one of the biggest things that Corey and David and you taught me was the prep work. You know, the prep. You can't just have to ring and go, who are you playing today? Oh, we're playing in this team. Like, okay, what they like? I don't know, won last week, I think. So now in the NIHL, the video, it's that access. You know, we have this system where all the teams put their games up, so you can just go and type a team in and watch the latest games. Which is handy because when I was in the same league as Peter Chelmsford, if we weren't playing in Peter where I was going to watch them back with a little notebook, like writing stuff down, sneakily trying to get the upper hand a little bit. Yeah, I would say that once they show playing mentality, you probably play at priorities. Like, you know, you go in the NIHL, you go in the elite league, it's their job. You go in the NIHL, the majority of them it's their job. But some of them have another job alongside it. So they know they've signed up to every weekend double headers. Then you go in like NIHL 1 and like, okay, half a hobby. Like some teams might have a bit of a budget where they can cover like a bit of fuel money and expenses and stuff like that. So, but it's still a hobby. Then you go in NIHL 2 where a lot of it's pay to play. So it's like, well, if I'm paying my £45 or however many and I don't want to come, then that's on me. It's not, you know, on you. Advancement or the world's advanced. Like how, you know, I remember being as a player, the coach would say, "Go take that chair and go sit under the ice." Yes, sir, absolutely. Like, wouldn't question why I had to do it because he's the coach.
Yeah.
Whereas now younger players want to know why, and that's fine. That's good. They want to know and they want to learn. They're not being rude. They're not being, I can't remember what the right word is. They're not trying to question your authority. They just want to know why, and that's where the difference now has come. And the game's evolved. It's gone from being hits, now skill, or then skill, and now the hits are starting to probably come back in, and now you're getting a mixture of, you know, for me, looking at NHL, I really rate Tom Wilson because he can do it all. Tom Wilson could score you the game-winning goal or make the game-winning pass, but he'll also fight anybody in the league.
Yeah,
it's like a train.
My comparable to that, and people may roast me for this, but I will always put him on a pedestal after watching him for the years that he was in Nottingham, that Skeeler pin. And for me, he was he was
absolutely right. Absolutely right. That's a perfect example, like in my opinion, because Leppy was and he could skate well, he could shoot, and you know, he got to a point where it's like, actually, like, I don't want to now do anything because yes, he's their best D-man, but if he really wants to, he could hurt me.
Yeah. For me, he was the modern enforcer before the vocabulary of modern enforcer was even thought about.
Yeah,
because it was that far back. You think you forget how quickly time passes, but Panthers won the Grand Slam in 2012.
10 years ago, wasn't it? Yeah, 10 years ago.
They did a 10-year anniversary and Zoom meeting with everybody. So it might even be 11 years now. But yeah, the idea of a modern enforcer was never even thought of. And then you see Lapine, and you're like, well, like you said, he can skate. He has an absolute cannon of a shot. He can hit people. He can make a play. His awareness of the ice, and fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Like I said, I do put him on a pedestal just a little bit much, but when you're around that kind of, when you're around all that success and all that kind of thing, you have soft spots, and quite easily do that with players. Final question for period 2 is probably one that might take us over again, but it's fine. We're having far too much fun, and it's one that that I'm seeing more and more across all leagues, not just in the UK, not just in the NHL, and that's coaches not really, in my opinion, not really being given the time to bed in their systems, maybe backroom staff, support systems, and given enough time to get their philosophies and their teams set. Do you feel it's the same thing? Because coaches this year have been given less than a season, sometimes been given 2, maybe 3. Do organizations need to be a bit more patient with who they are signing to be behind the bench?
It's very tough. Any sport, results aren't going your way, whether it's football, hockey, the manager, it comes down to the manager or the coach. Each organisation is different, and I've only been involved with 3 organisations, so I can't comment too much. Personally, I had technically 4 years in Chelmsford.
Yeah.
Because of the COVID year, the league got shut down. Then I signed a team, a really good team. In my opinion, probably a team that would have won the league, and then we never had that season. And then that gave guys time at home. This is my own personal experience. So
yeah.
I was then retired. Guys came back out of shape, picked up injuries quicker. So in regards to sort of like time, I don't know, because that's down to the organisation. You know, some organisations might just want results. Some organisations, the coach has lost the room. In a sense of that he's not listening to the players. It's a lot of give and take. Like, you have to understand your players, and there's players that will exceed from being yelled at, and there's players that sometimes need to, hey, like, yeah, you messed up there, but you did really well here, and here. And that's hard to do, and that's probably the hardest part, is knowing what players, because you're a human too, and you have emotions. So, you know, during the game, after a game, you know, it's never good to probably talk to a player straight away, because you're emotional, they're emotional. And now video is available, so now it's even better. You can watch it. There's been so many games this year where I'm like, we didn't play very well, and then I watched it and I'm like, actually, we weren't that bad. But yeah, back to my own sort of personal experience. Sometimes it might just be a shake-up. Like I remember being let go from Chelmsford. Next weekend they went to Solent, tough place to go. If anyone's ever been there, they know. And they won, I think it was like 11-3, and no team goes to Solent and wins 11-3.
Jeez.
Like no team goes there and does that. And the import that wasn't performing for me, I mentioned him earlier on, Stanislav, like, he goes and gets 5 goals. And I'm thinking, like, he could have done for me the week before. But then you factor in, okay, well, now he's in a team where I brought him into the team, and you know, we got on. We were already talking about next year, and now all of a sudden I've been let go. So he's now like, okay, I have to perform now, because the coach is gone, so nobody is safe. You know, at this point, and I think that's maybe why they do it. It might be like anything. Like, as a coach, if a player that you like comes on the market, I really like this player, I'm going to get, but that's going to put me in a tough spot, and I've got to let one go.
Yeah. So
as regards like early doors, yeah. Again, every organisation, I can't say it's down to the organisation, and I wouldn't want to comment and say a certain organisation within any league is wrong for doing what they do. And as a coach, you do what you think's best at that time. As a player, you do on the ice what you think's best. And I think, yeah, coaches is tough, but being an owner is tough too, or being a manager is tough too, because they have to make a decision where they think it's best. And you know, the higher you go up the league, it is a business. It generates a revenue, and people don't. I won't say people don't want to come watch if you're losing. If your product isn't very good, people aren't going to come and watch, especially in today's times where everything's so expensive. People are trying to save money here and there. So going to watch can be anything, like football or you know, or hockey, like, or any sport. Like, sport's the first thing that goes, because it's a hobby. It's an enjoyment, you know. So if the team's not performing, you're then starting to lose money. Like, well, what can we do? Like, you can't get rid of 20 guys and start again. But you can get rid of one, especially if someone is available there to come in.
Yeah.
Or you think that shake-up might work, or they might have just seen to the most saying, I really don't like how he does this, or I caught him talking to like our captain like this, and I really don't like that as a person. So there's a lot that goes into. I think that's a question I'm not sure anyone would like to answer, if I'm honest.
No,
I wouldn't want to really put a yes or no to that one.
No, it's just the fan in me kind of wanted to get the talking out there, because, and anybody else who watches the sport or takes any sort of notice as to kind of the goings on in whatever league or whatever sport, say coaches, managers in football, kind of interchangeable.
Yeah, and it like I've only ever had that experience once. It was really bad. I didn't enjoy the experience of that, and it's not an experience I want to live through again. But I think if I look back at it personally, do I think it was the right call? I'll be honest. No, I don't think Chelmsford letting me go was the right call. But the owner, the management felt it was, and I respect them for thinking that way. And they went on to a playoff final. Could they go on to a playoff final under me? Potentially. Who knows? Who knows? But they felt it was the right decision, and as a person, I respect that. And no ill feelings, no hard feelings at all towards them or their organisation. I said, like, I can't stress. I've only had that experience once at that level, so I can't comment for every organisation, how every organisation goes about it.
Sure. We kind of dove into something a little bit serious, so we're going to take a pause, take a breath, kind of reset and get going for the third period. Join us back after a few messages for period 3 with the Colonel. Let's Talk Hockey is powered by Pixel Factory Media and Hamilton Audio Management, taking care of all of our post-production needs. You can find Pixel Factory Media at pixelfactorymedia.org and Hamilton Audio Management at GCHamilton88 on Instagram. A big thank you goes out to both companies for their work, and definitely check them out where you can. And now, back to the show. Welcome back from the break. This is period 3 with the Colonel Joe Willson on Let's Talk Hockey. Third and final period, and then a little bit of time at the end for a question from Joe to me, and one that he sent ahead of time. I think that we're going to have a bit of fun talking about that. But before that, I've set up a little thing to try and set the world to rights a little bit, kind of talk about the structure of UK hockey a little bit. Given my job, I have a lot of spare time to sit with my thoughts. Whether that's dangerous or not, we're about to find out. But this also kind of sparked up from a Facebook post on one of the Nottingham Panthers Facebook groups. I can't remember who posted it, but they talked about a 12-team league at the top, relegation and promotion, a certain amount of teams making it to playoffs. And they've even gone to the trouble of listing a bunch of teams from Division 1, 2, 3, all the way down to an under-17s league, an under-20s league, with all the teams listed. But my thoughts on how to revolutionise the UK hockey is that Scotland has a national league, and the UK has the rest of the UK has the elite league. But there's 3 Scottish teams: Dundee Stars, Glasgow Clan, and Fife Flyers, that are perennially around the bottom 4 teams in the league. If those teams were to move to the Scottish League and make that a more competitive league, would that improve the Scottish League and improve the competitiveness up there, and make that another hockey hotbed in the UK for us to grow talent, to grow more homegrown talent and give them more competition up there? And then, if so, then bring up teams from the divisions below. Joe, any thoughts on anything that I've gone over there? Am I living in a dream world, unfortunately?
It's tough, and I think it's tough. I guess if I put it in, there's no relegation and promotion, right? Which, coming from a football background, was really shocking for me a little bit.
Yeah.
But then when you look at it, it's like, okay, like it costs a lot of money to go in the elite league. It costs a club, an organisation, a lot. So we'll start at the elite league because it's the top. So it's a 14 import league. Whether you agree with that or not, it's 14 imports. So that's 14 sets of flights you have to buy. That's 14 visas you have to get. Yeah. I'm not sure if they do the ITC cards for the elite league, but I know they do for the league below. So that's 14 ITC cards. So that's a lot of money. So you have to look at, like, you know, fan base and you see it. It's same with any sport. The teams with the better fan bases or the better fan following genuinely have the bigger budgets and therefore are able to get the better players. It's not just that, you know, it's all the other stuff that goes, you know, housing, shirts, sticks, everything. Mm-hmm. Before you've stepped foot on the ice for your first training session, all these things have been brought and supplied and accounted for. So yeah, the Scottish teams dropping down to the SNL is an option, but they have to want to do it, obviously. And does it make that league competitive? No, I don't think it does. It turns a Dundee into a Belfast in that league.
Yeah,
because they're stepping down with maybe the same crowds, same budget, and therefore they're now being able to go, okay, this Scottish player who's really good, we can now get him from the best team there at the minute, which I think probably not because of Solway.
Yeah.
And we can put him in Dundee, and he, you know, what personally I think is there needs to be a development for Brits. You know, I know lots of my friends talk about the BNL, and I never saw the BNL. I wasn't involved when the BNL was around, not the BNL Super League, and they stamped that was a lot sort of better. I remember the EPL where there was a 4-import league. It's a 4-import league where you could have 2 on the ice at the same time, and that, to me, as a fan, seemed to work. You know, you had competitive games, you had good Brits coming through, but never sort of like the young Brits striving to the elite league. You know, I think that is happening now. We do see that a lot more. A lot more clubs, like, you know, for speak from Milton Keynes, like we have. Well, I'm trying to count now. I think we have 5 players on 2-way teams. Sure. You know, we have Max Stewart, who's on a 2-way from Belfast. We have Sean Norris, who plays for us on a 2-way from Belfast. We have Jack Hopkins on a 2-way from Nottingham. Sam Talbot on a 2-way from Coventry, and Jordan Headley on a 2-way from Coventry. And that allows a British player to get his playing time, do his apprenticeship almost, but train and play in that elite league environment. Obviously, for us with the Belfast connection, it's a lot harder because it's a flight. But you know, and Jack's a Nottingham player first. That's, you know, he was signed by Nottingham first. I think that's a lot of the time the problem with 2-ways is that some coaches, quite rightly so, they want their team to succeed. They want the best players, and you know, from me personally, I'll speak about them again, but those 3 people that I keep always coming back to, you know, David does his academy, which I'm part of. I'm not necessarily on the ice, but off the ice, and that's what's needed. The development, you know, we run a pro clinic, and that is you want to be a pro. This is what it takes, not just on the ice, but off the ice. The workouts, the nutrition, the video, this is where you need to be, which they don't necessarily get at their clubs because time and resource, and they only get an hour a week, so they're not going to have another hour for off, or they're not going to get on the ice in that hour. They're not going to learn how to defend a 2-on-1 or attack a 2-on-1. That's what's potentially missing from that development. That's what all these other nations are getting. All these other nations are getting time to do. But with regards to what do I think can fix it, I don't know. It's something that my brain power probably can't come up with an idea for that. I think two ways are great. We, myself and Tim, are keen to have young British players that we can develop and hopefully send them to the elite league. And again, like we spoke about earlier on, that feeling of this player is really good, and now he's there, and I helped him get to that level. And it's tough because a protocol has to be in place over who's the mother team and who's the secondary team, but you want the player to play at the highest level, but you also want your team to succeed as a coach. So really, again, like before, there isn't an answer to that question. I do think that two governing bodies doesn't help. I think one governing body would be better. One set of rules would be better regarding if you look at a player that an athlete peaks at 25. So, maybe what I would like to see is NIHL 2 turn into an under 23 league. And instead of having imports, you have 2 or 3 over 23-year-olds who are your experienced players. And it's basically a 1 per line. So you can sign 4, but then you're running 4-line hockey. Then on the flip side of that, you could take NIHL 1 into an under 30.
Yeah.
That aspect. And I think that's maybe where we should start. Not necessarily look, okay, the elite league's the top league. Great. Like, let's take that league. I know like a lot of the elite league fans, I don't follow elite. I know a lot of fans don't necessarily like 14 import rule. Well, is there good enough for it? Yeah, potentially there is, but do you still get the same value for money, let's say, because you're paying a lot to go and watch hockey. So let's start at the bottom. Let's start and let's develop this 16-year-old kid he's the best under 16 in his age group, and he's the second best under 18. He's that good and he plays that well. Now let's put him in an under 23s league when the time comes to him, where he can develop under a coach that he will develop under, and under players where it's like, okay, you're not an import, you're an over 23, and then okay, now we're going to put him on a 2-way with this team, and he's going to work his way up. I personally think that's where you start, and I think what David does over the summer with the kids he gets and throughout the year on his academy is where it should start, and is a great foundation for that. And I know that he does have big plans for that, but ultimately clubs have to buy in, and the governing body has to buy in to turn that, like I said, NIHL 2, and it's shooting myself in the foot, because if that had been the case, I would never have played there for as long as I played it. But
yeah,
then you're talking about development and how do we make British hockey better. It has to start with Brits. That's the way I look at it. And if you're going to start with that 16-year-old, start with that 16-year-old who's going into senior hockey for the first time, and he's probably used to being the best 16. Also, he goes into senior hockey. He sat on the bench on the 4th line. He's like, I don't really like this. Like, well, then he finds work. He's like, oh, well, I can work on a Saturday, and well, I kind of enjoy playing hockey, but I'm not really playing because I'm on the bench. Well, I should go to work. So that's the way we lose a lot. We lose a lot. Out there, the biggest age, the biggest drop off for kids in our sport is 16 to 18, because they find work and they find girlfriends and they find other hobbies outside of hockey, and they might start thinking, actually, like, I'm never going to make the local team, so what's the point?
Yeah.
And there needs to be gaps, there needs to be bridges, there needs to be, I work with Tim Wallace, and it's really good to talk to him because he's American. He's played in that AHL, NHL, and so like, how does that work with being sent down and being pulled up, and to understand how another country does it, and with the rights, and it comes into Washington Capital want to play from the Hershey Bears, they pay the Hershey Bears out of his contract, or it's in his contract, they will pay a certain amount. And not everyone does it in Britain as a job, so we can't mould off that. We could use that as a platform, as perfect. I remember being in Chelmsford and having two-way players with Peter, and Slava was always, okay, I will take the player if I can guarantee them ice time. Like,
Yeah.
We had a player that was on a two-way with Phantoms 2, myself and him, and he was like, okay, this is the bar. If I can give this player ice time, I'm taking him. If I can't and you can, you're taking him, but it's ice time. If you can't give him ice time, he goes to Phantoms 2. And I think that's good. That works, but it needs to be something probably a bit more set in stone writing to that.
Yeah, almost like the player has a bit more of a control in it as well. Like they know that come a weekend they're going to get ice time regardless. Just depends at what level and whether they're available.
Yeah, and that's hard because again with two ways, depending on who's got control. Like argument's sake, we have Jack on a two-way with Nottingham. So Corey might say to me, "Hey, you can have Jack this weekend, not a problem at all." And then Saturday night he gets an injury, and it's like, okay, sorry, you're playing Sunday, but we need Jack.
Yeah,
and that's where it comes into like who has his rights. I think that's where in the past, and I'm talking like 10 years ago, there's a lot of arguments between coaches, and two ways became a thing of the past of that. But I think it's how we sort of do it in MK is that you are signed to Milton Keynes. Again, we have a few differences to that where they've signed. Jack's a perfect example because he signed in Nottingham, and then Nottingham put him on the 2A, I think November time, I think it was.
Yeah.
But you've signed to us, and we as a club have gone out to our contacts and said, hey, we've got this player A who's really good. Would you be interested in putting on 2A with yourselves? Like, yeah, okay, well, he is our player, so we do have control of his contract, of his rights as such. But we're also I possibly a bit biased, but I would say we're very good, and we do let our players go off and they miss training. We'll look and we'll go, okay, we're playing this team. It's like, okay, well, we should be okay without him. Yeah, it might be a bit scary, but he's going to go and play for Belfast Giants in Sheffield in front of 2,000 people.
Yeah,
in the ice arena. That's a good experience. So you should probably let him go and enjoy that experience, and we'll struggle against the seventh team, and we should still win, but it might not be by as many goals.
Yeah, yeah.
But then also on the flip side of that, it gives a chance for someone on our fourth line to go, hey, he's not here. I'm going to step up and I'm going to show that I can score and I can do this and I can do as good a job as what he does.
Yeah, and I deserve those chances as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Just something that pops into my head: players on a two-way. I'm not sure if you ever were, but if they're going from an elite league coach to an NIHL coach to maybe even down, and same the other way. If you're bringing players up and stuff, you've all got your own coaching style, you've all got your own coaching systems. How difficult is that for a player to be like, right, okay, I've got this coach wants me to do it this way, but then I step up, and do you think that's a confusing state?
Very difficult. Extremely difficult. I would say that's probably you've hit a nail on the head there, and that is difficult. But the last round we spoke about a coach being fired or being let go or leaving, and a new coach coming in who might have a completely different, thing. And I guess it's just saying players. It is a different because, like I said, Saturday they're playing a 1-2-2 forecheck, and then Sunday they're playing a 2-1-2 forecheck. But for argument's sake, but yeah, it's hard. Don't know what other coaches do. Personally, was never on a two-way, so can't comment from a player's point of view on that. But I know, again, Milton Keynes, we do our meetings, we go through everything. As the assistant coach, when we have a player that comes in, I'll always say hello to them. Everyone says hello to them. So, how you doing? Okay, everything today? I know what we're doing this breakout. Want to go through anything? And that's the obviously got I've not been here for a few weeks. I can't remember what's that breakout. Okay, yeah, well, today we're doing this breakout. This is what we're going to do.
Right.
That's maybe the difference in my approach to it. But yeah, that's a good. I've never thought about that actually. But
I just thought about that. You know, we've talked. Like I said, we talked about coaching styles and kind of coaching mentalities and stuff. And when you're kind of chopping and changing, but then if you look at the NHL and the AHL, their communication between their coaching staff is so open that they're almost playing that sort of style in the AHL and the systems that when they come up, they're ready to go.
That is exactly what I was going to say. And I was literally going to say that to you, and that's the other flip side of it. You know, I'll use your hometown for example. Does, let's say, the Nottingham Lions coaching staff need to go and spend a week with the Nottingham Panthers coaching staff and go, hey, we've got a player here who's on a two-way, so he's going to play for you, but these are our systems. So we would like you to play our systems. This is how you do them. This is, you know, spend a week with us showing our players them, where your players will also learn them. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to go and do that. Now, both teams are playing exactly the same way. So you'd have to plug a player or half everything you think, actually not. This player that we didn't have on a two-way staff was really good. He's really come on. He's flourishing, and you know we're going to put him on this two-way. Like all of a sudden, he's in like bang in there, and that was something when I was in Champs I was trying to do. We had a feeder team, and it helped because it was the same owner. So we knew that the Warriors were the future chieftains, and I would go on their practice, and I'd always say, "Hey, you're the coach. You're going to run the practice. I'm just going to float around." And it gives me a chance to see my players that are on two-way, how they are in your environment. Mm-hmm. It gives me a chance to see your players that aren't on two-way, how they are in your environment. Actually, you're actually pretty good. Like in your own group, I'm going to ask you to train with us or whatever. And one of the things that I always said, like, you know, this is what breakout I do, and this is what breakout sort of forecheck I do. And so it'd be easier if your players did this, because then when I take them in, or if they come off, you know, the guest or whatever, we can do that. But I think as long as you get the player, most players understand the game pretty well when they get to like the elite level. So, you know, spending 5 minutes with a coach saying, hey, what's the breakout today? Or hey, you know, do you know the breakout? Like, no, sweet, there's the board, bam, 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 here it is.
Yeah. Just going to take a quick second. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we go into your OT question? Anything else on Clark and Co that you wanted to get in?
I think I pretty much covered it all. Just, you know, that's really my starting point. You know, we spoke last period about that. That was probably my starting point. I went from, like you introduced me as the co of Clark and Co, and I don't ever, you know, Dave comments and says that is the case too, and it's something that, you know, I look back and I'm like, okay, I think I started helping him just by pushing pucks like 10 years ago, and now it's almost like, wow, like, you know, I'm there, like, you know, I'm helping run a practice, I'm helping develop a practice, and I'm seeing these players that are coming through, and it's very, again, I'm very thankful for that opportunity. And I think as hockey schools go, like I did David's first hockey school when he first started in Peterborough. It was the one hockey school that I went as a player that I actually enjoyed.
Yeah.
And then every time I go coach with him, I enjoy it, and you can see the enjoyment on the kids and the adults' faces. And you know yourself, the adults have a very, very fun time.
Yeah. We have a great time.
You know, yeah, and it's nice. I think for the adults, it's nice that you see these people as human beings. You see the Stevie Lee, David Clarkson. You see that, like, they are human. And for the kids, it's, you know, wow, these are the people that I go and watch every Sunday or every Saturday, and now I'm getting to ask them questions. And Ollie Betteridge is teaching me how to shoot, and you know, I watched Cade Nielsen at the World Championships, and now he's showing me that his teeth really do come out. Like, yeah, you know, I think that, you know, that aspect, and you know, I spoke earlier on about family. I think David's really good at, you know, just like a Clark and Co family within the coaching staff, and I could talk about that all day. I could talk about that for hours on end.
Well, I'll make a promise to you right now. I've got some in-person podcast stuff which I'm getting my hands on before a Clark and Co in Nottingham. We'll get to I've got space up above bunkers in their function room. We'll get a handful of coaches, maybe Clarkey himself. He's been on. He gave me 5 minutes of his time at Peterborough camp once, and I think that's all I'm ever going to get out of him. But we'll have a sit around. And we'll promo Clark and Co, and he can give me I don't know, a hoodie or something. I don't care. But there's a little tidbit stuff for Biddy to throw out on social media, or for me to throw out on social media.
Yeah.
But as to end this, let's go into your OT question. So Joe, like we do with every guest, we ask you to send us over a question, give us something to ponder, to think about. It's not just us asking the questions. Let's have a chat and a talk about what you have to ask me.
So, Max, you, like myself, like ice hockey and watch a lot of ice hockey. So, my question to you is the NIHL. I know you don't necessarily follow that as such, but there's been a lot of sellouts in that league and even in the league below. Do you think British hockey fans prefer watching the Elite League, or do you think they prefer watching like the league nights against the Milton Keynes Lightning, where you've got like Kieran Brown against Sean Norris, or the Elite League where you've got imports and maybe players that aren't homegrown? I know that Sean Norris nor Kieran Brown are homegrown to Leeds or Milton Keynes, but they're players that have become a foundation part of that club. Do you personally prefer going to watch Nottingham Panthers or Nottingham Lions, where Lions are, I imagine, all local guys?
Pretty much all local guys. There is a quote unquote import, Zach Yokoyama, who was the top point scorer, top goal scorer last season. I think he produced over a point a game, or over a goal a game. He was ridiculous last season. I like watching Elite League hockey, and that's because that's all I've known until the last handful of years, where, or maybe the last 8 or so years, because when I started, it was the Elite League, it was Panthers, it was Barry Nyker, Greg Haddon, PC Druin, kind of like all those guys, and then obviously the Clarkey era and the Corey Nielsen's and the Jordan Foxes and everybody else, and that was all that I knew. But then, after coming on a Clark and Co camp, after broadening my horizons with playing the game, going to other rinks and realizing there's other teams in the UK, and then getting a chance to watch those games, and also knowing a couple of people on the team. So knew Tom Norton, plays for the Peterborough Phantoms. I now try and keep up to date with as much as I can with the Peterborough Phantoms, whether it's just the results, watching highlights, or whatever else I can. But I think the tide is changing, because once you drop down a league out of the Elite League, and if listeners, if you think I'm wrong, by all means roast me in the comments, roast me on Instagram or Facebook. But I feel like there's more passion in those leagues. I feel like it kind of means more to the players. It doesn't just feel like a job. Whereas to sometimes when I'm watching Elite League, it just feels like guys are going through the motions. And it's like, I'm paying to watch this. I want to see someone run, I want to feel like somebody's who's on the team, a player feel like they want to run through a wall for the team. Who's going to stick around, who I'm going to get to know, understand how they play, kind of be able to root for year in and year out. At the Elite League level, it feels like, okay, with the 14 imports, after the season's done, if you're not on a 2-year university deal, thanks for your time, there's bigger and better leagues, and this was a stepping stone to a league back in North America, or a higher league in Europe. Case in point of that, and I hate to call him out because I'd love to have him on as a guest, is goaltender this year, Alex DeBow. I think his first or second interview with Radio Nottingham, He was like, yeah, I wasn't getting much time playing where I was playing. I want to get a load more game time and better myself. So like one or two weekends into the season, and I already know that it doesn't feel like you're invested in the team. This feels like a stopgap for you to something else. Whereas I feel like in the leagues below, guys stick around for a little bit longer, maybe 3 years, maybe 4 years, maybe 5 years, maybe become a fan favorite and they stick around even longer. And it just kind of, yeah, there just feels to be, it feels to me like there's more passion from the players at the lower levels. That kind of, in a roundabout way.
I wasn't expecting that answer. not gonna lie. But yeah, no, I don't watch the Elite League. I think anybody that's doing any sport, I think there's passion there. I get what you're saying. Maybe that comes down to like you said, we've got a couple of players that, like you said, I can name two: Bobby Chamberlain and Liam Stewart, that are fan favourite.
Yeah,
and they are passionate, but I think they are just passionate people. So I think you put them in any team, they would have that same environment. I think anyone that does any sport for any team, they should want to win. You should want to win if you're doing sport. That's why you do it. You do it for that thrill, right? Of winning and that balance and everything. So I don't watch. I'll be honest. I don't watch the Elite League. I keep up to date with it. I watch the occasional interview and the occasional highlights when I can. But more, it's just score results. It's just I know if Nottingham have beaten Sheffield and if Sheffield have lost to Dundee or whatever, like I know that. But yeah, that's interesting. That is. Do you think it does come from though? Like you said that passion, and you talked about the Clarkey era, but like now you don't necessarily have the Brits that aren't local. Let's say, like do you think that has an impact on it? Like a Sheffield Camp Nottingham rivalry isn't the same because you've not got the local Sheffield kid against the local Nottingham kid.
But they don't even need to be necessarily local or from the local area. They just need to be. They just need to be like, oh, he is a Nottingham Panther or he is a Sheffield Steeler, and that's what it needs to be. It doesn't feel. I know the club's gone through a lot of changes, and Elite League teams go through a lot of changes over the seasons for various reasons with changing players, etc. But when you look at a Sheffield Steeler team, Robert Dow's going to be on it. The two Phillips are going to be on it.
Yeah.
Evan Mosey has now become a staple there. I'm pretty sure Sheffield Steelers fans can probably list off another 3 or 4. Alex Graham, another one who's making a name for himself.
Really good young talent. Yeah,
fantastic young talent. And again, he's getting regular minutes. I've been lucky enough to commentate on two of his games in Manchester. And
if they could just take him when he plays against MK, that would be brilliant. Give me one less thing to worry about.
That's the thing. But with players of that talent, they just don't switch off. That's the problem. That's the problem as a coach. But yeah, like in other teams, I can't speak for everyone. I'm a Nottingham lad. I've watched the Panthers the most, but at this point, it doesn't feel like there's a core like there is in Sheffield, like there is in Manchester with Erdhart, and Sullivan's been around for a while. Now Hazeldine's making a name for himself there. So yeah, having a core of players that stick around and to build around would draw me back to that. Would draw me more interested in the Elite League. I'm getting more and more interested in the lower leagues, and it's kind of partly because I've fallen into a bit of luck of commentating on the Nottingham Lions and helping out voluntarily with that, to open my eyes to there is other hockey in the UK. So yeah, and it does come, like, thinking about it, it does come down to a passion, because the Lions players really want to win every game. They're not guaranteed to win any game. I think they finished bottom of the league past handful of seasons. I know they were in It came close last season. I think they've lost out on goal difference or by 1 or 2 games. You really felt like it meant something. But at the elite league level, when I was sat in the arena tonight on a Sunday, Nottingham played Glasgow Clan. The atmosphere was dead. You didn't feel like the players. The players. It felt like, to me personally, it felt like the players only turned up for 20 minutes. I know I might be sounding very, very harsh, but it's just. But yet, I go and commentate on the Lions, or I watch highlights from kind of the other levels in the UK. I'm like, so why doesn't that translate over? And it's hard. It's hard to take sometimes.
Yeah, I've got you there. I've got you back there now, and
yeah. I knew that was. I knew it was coming. But I'm gonna end on a fun one because I've called you Colonel a couple of times, and he's rolling already. Love it. First off, need to know the story. I kind of have an idea of the story, but I want to get it confirmed from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And then, has the nickname followed on into your professional behind the bench career?
Yeah, so I don't know. There's like majority of people. This is the God's honest truth. Majority of people hear Colonel and think like army. So okay, like he's a coach, like army sort of sergeant, like second in command, clerk and oh, okay, yeah, cool, makes sense. Well, really, the real story is we were sat in David's hockey camps. Always used to be in Peterborough.
Yeah,
and used to do 2 weeks, and let me tell you, they were the 2 toughest weeks of the year. We used to, first week we'd do 2 camps simultaneously side by side, and me and him would arrive sometimes before the rink staff, and we'd have to wait for the rink staff to open the rink. We were that early. We would like be there at 6:30 and be leaving at 8:30 at night. 5 Monday to Friday. Then we did a pro camp next week. It's a bit more chilled, but still long hours. So we have lunch there. So having lunch in the camp, and we get this I think it's like chicken pasta. And I was young, just been involved in this group of people, peers, and as a kid, so I'm sort of playing with my food a little bit. Like, I don't really want this. It's not the tastiest meal. If anyone's ever been to Planet Ice Rink, the pizza and chips is fine. Now you're asking them to cook pasta and chicken, all of a sudden their minds are blown. So I'm playing with it, and I'm thinking, like, they're all finished. So I'll just wait for them to go, and then I'll chuck it in the bin because I don't want to seem rude by throwing this in the bin. And I didn't even realize that Corey sat opposite me. So all of a sudden, it's just 2 hands, bam, on the thing. Will you just eat it? Eat it or leave it? Like, you're infuriating around. Like, if you had a piece of corn, you'd be picking off 1 kernel. That's it. That's what we're calling it now. Kernel. That's what we're calling it. That's where it started. That's where like it started on that, like, kernel, like KERNAL, like
yeah,
like, and then kind of like developed. And you asked, has it portrayed into my coaching career, and I do, as a person, as I don't know, like, yeah, I've spoken a lot on this podcast about my time in Nottingham, my time with David and Corey, and the biggest thing I said, and I didn't even realize it. Like, I didn't realize it was happening. Like, they won the Grand Slam, and I'm just a fan. I was just so pumped. I think I was 18 to be able to be like around these players, sit and have a coffee with David Ling, or just stuff like that, and didn't realize what was going on. And so, yeah, like, I do think there's Joe, who is one person, and then there's the Colonel, who's this completely different person. It's like an alter ego, and it is funny. I think out of the 2, I probably prefer the Colonel. He's a bit more confident. He's a bit more outgoing. Joe likes his life. He's quite happy to let his partner pick up that important phone call that needs to be made, and but the Colonel's pushing that person out of the way to make that call. So yeah, nicknames stick, right? Don't think it's a bad nickname. It's funny, now that I'm getting older and probably more recognised. Corey will call me Joe, and David will call me Joe, and people are like, oh, even I'm like, oh, I don't like that. Like,
Yeah.
never call me Joe, like, you know. But yeah, it has stuck, and Corey tried molding me. I think one after a few days said you've got to talk about yourself in third person. I was like, what? Like, yeah, like you can't say me or I. You say the Colonel would like a coffee, and if you don't do it, I'm going to slash you on the ice. So, would you like coffee? Yeah, the Colonel takes white with one sugar. He's like, yes. I just felt like such an idiot. Like, I was just like, I must look like a right dick right now. But I'm pretty scared of this human. He's quite tall. And he was still playing at the time. He was tall. He was jacked. And I was like, I think if he wanted to, he could probably eat me. So I'm just gonna do what he says.
Yeah. Well,
he still has that over me. Like, I still think,
oh yeah,
yes, sir. I'm still over here. Yeah, that's where it started, and I think it's developed into, like you said, it's developed into what everyone probably thinks it is, in the sense of the Colonel.
Yeah, awesome. So my editor Billy's got a handful. He should have been on this call to regulate it, but never mind. We've had too much fun, and there's more in the tank. I know there is. So we'll save it for a more summary time, and probably around a few more familiar faces. So it only leaves me to say thank you to everyone watching and listening, and sticking with us, even though it's been a while since our last recording. But I can probably safely say you're going to enjoy this one just as much as anyone, probably a little bit more as well. For those who have been on Clark and Co camps and know the Colonel as well as I do. I'm sure plenty of people get some chuckles out of this. So, to the Colonel himself, thank you, Joe, for being on Let's Talk Hockey.
Welcome. It's been a pleasure and very enjoyable.
Awesome. So again, thank you to the listeners. This has been episode 19 with Joe Willson, the Colonel, and I've been your host, Max. We've been sponsored by Bunkers Hill Hockley and powered by Pixel Factory Media and Hamilton Audio Management. Go and check those guys out. Links are everywhere. This will be available on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you get your good podcasts and wherever you get your bad ones too, as well as YouTube as well. So go and check us out. Check us out on Facebook as well. We do live streams for free of beer league or rec league hockey. So check us out there. And if you're a team that wants us to go and do some live comms of your games, get in touch on social media and we'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Thank you once again. We'll see you on the next one.
Let's Talk Hockey.
Boom. Cool. So, good news and bad news. Good news is that the recording's happening and it's fine and we're all good to go. Bad news is my co-host is having a baby.